Growing up, I was a massive Dynasty Warriors fan. In fact, one of the first PS2 games I had was Dynasty Warriors 2, and God do I remember playing that game for hours every day after school. I don't know what it was, the history, the endless hack and slash gameplay, or the amazing music. There was something about the Dynasty Warriors games that drove me in. And I owned all of them back in the day, even the Empires and XL titles. Then the PS3 came around and everything changed once I played Dynasty Warriors 6, which is a game I previously reviewed, so if you would like to watch that one, then go for it. Long story short, Dynasty Warriors 6 was a travesty. It was just awful. Now, most people consider these games as a whole to be boring and incredibly repetitive. Well, Dynasty Warriors 6 was the worst hack and slash game I've played in many years. You see, you couldn't string together combos. You could only press square or triangle to attack. You couldn't combine them, and for a hack and slash game, that's blasphemy. The gameplay in general was flat out dreadful, and it took one game from my most beloved childhood franchise to ruin the entire Dynasty Warriors series for me entirely. When Dynasty Warriors 7 came around, I was very cautious about it. Honestly, I didn't want to touch the game because I was worried it was going to be like how 6 was. Now, thankfully, that wasn't the case. 7 came out back in March of 2011 for PS3, Xbox 360, PC, and even the PlayStation Portable. I haven't played this game since I got the Platinum Trophy for it however many years ago, and, well, I have a lot to say about Dynasty Warriors 7, and a lot of opinions that people have that I disagree with strongly. So what does that exactly mean? Well, take a listen and find out for yourself. The story mode has been completely revamped from previous titles. In the past games, you were able to select any character you've unlocked and go through their particular story mode, which meant that if there were 50 characters, you were able to play their individual story mode for every single character involved, and a lot of times the stories lasted anywhere from 3 hours to 6 max. So this meant that it took forever to complete the entire story mode for the previous titles. Dynasty Warriors 7 simplified the story by only allowing you to choose from one of the 4 kingdoms: Wu, Shu, Wei, and the newly introduced kingdom Jin. The story mode in 7 has been vastly improved in my opinion because they made the story way more historically accurate than ever before. You see, you are only allowed to play as the significant characters that are important to each level in the story. It makes total sense compared to previous titles where you would be thrown into battles that your particular character really had no importance in, or maybe historically that person never took part in the battle in the first place. Honestly, I thoroughly enjoyed the storytelling in this Dynasty Warriors compared to any of the previous titles. It was well thought out, well executed, and I can't really think of any complaints that come to mind. To complete all of the 4 stories, you're probably looking at around 20 hours of playtime, depending of course on how you play the game. If you hardcore rush throughout the entire game, you'd be able to complete the story in less than half the time. Then again, you could say that sort of thing about every single game in existence, so, yeah. For 2011, the graphics look pretty damn good. For a Dynasty Warriors game, at least. The character models look great, the scenery looks good, lighting, cutscene rendering, everything looks totally fine. Except one major annoying flaw, and this flaw exists with every single Dynasty Warriors game prior to 7. Dynasty Warriors is plagued for having horrible frame rate lag, and 7 of course is no exception to that. Whenever you are running around with a group of soldiers or fighting in large crowds, the frame rate slows down, or even in some cases skips around a little bit. The problem is nowhere near as bad as some of the PS2 games, but that doesn't mean I could give it a pass. It's still bad, and it happens all of the time. One thing I absolutely love about the graphics is that in the story mode, the cutscenes mesh right into the gameplay seamlessly. Like there's no loading time or weird cutaway, it's all done in one perfect cut. This was new for Dynasty Warriors, and man does it look incredible. The soundtrack of Dynasty Warriors 7 is amazing, probably one of my favorite soundtracks from any of the games in the series thus far. I mean, yeah, sure, Dynasty Warriors has always had great music, but man do I love 7's.
I'm serious this time.
I can't afford to let this be the end. There's still much more I must accomplish.
Another victim has fallen before me.
The sound effects are also pretty good, nothing really all that important to talk about or really nitpick for that matter. The acting and dialogue leave a lot to be desired, but that's typical of all the Dynasty Warrior titles. The English voice acting isn't what I would deem horrible by any means, especially if you've heard the acting in some of the shit I've played. It's fine. Tolerable would be the best way to describe the voice work here.
The commander! Get him!
Look out! My lord, you must stay back!
With a man like you protecting me, I can afford the odd adventure.
My lord, please!
Why is it that you fight? For your departed lord?
Now that leaves the gameplay. So, yes, this is where my opinion is going to vastly differ from the main core fans of the series. In previous titles, each character, for the most part, had their own specific weapons, each with their own individual movesets. Well, in 7, you see, they did something different here. Instead, there are a vast amount of weapons that you can choose from. Each weapon has its own specific moveset, and you are able to choose from 2 different weapons that you can carry with you and swap between the 2 weapons on the fly, compared to just having one like in previous titles. A lot of fans loved this change. Well, I hate it with a passion. So much so that it practically ruined the game for me entirely. On paper, sure, it sounds cool, right? Being able to use whatever weapon you want with whatever character you want. In reality, it's not all that great, and the problem I have with it is that you have like 50 people you can play as, so there's not much stopping you from picking the same few weapons that you personally enjoy on every single character you pick. Keep in mind, there's quite a few people who use the same exact weapon for their signature. So this means that depending on the weapon, like a sword or a spear, like 3 or more people are going to end up sharing that same exact moveset, since that's their signature weapon. The only difference is that the character stats will be different, and so will their special attack, otherwise known as their Musou move. It takes away the whole uniqueness between the characters because there's absolutely zero reason to play every single one, let alone half of them to find out which one you like. It more or less feels like I'm picking a character skin and going with what weapon I enjoy most, and that's it. By all means, you can go ahead and make the argument that if you equip any character with their signature weapon, that their movesets are unique, but that's a load of bullshit. All that happens is that your moveset with that character's signature weapon has one extra extended heavy attack. Big deal. That doesn't really mean their movesets are unique whatsoever. What would have made this whole weapon swap system better is that each character had their own specific weapons and movesets like in previous titles. But when they killed an enemy officer, they have the option to pick up their weapon to use it for a limited time. Maybe for a minute, or maybe until it breaks, or whatever. That at least would have been more interesting than what we got with this, in my personal opinion, of course. Outside of that, the gameplay overall is typical for a Dynasty Warriors title. You hack and slash your way through the levels until you either complete whatever objective is asked of you, or you kill the commanding officer of the opposing army. There really isn't much to it, honestly. Dynasty Warriors in general is a very simple, easy game that anyone can pick up and play regardless of age. And most people would classify Dynasty Warriors to be a mindless hack and slash game. And that's sort of true. I mean, it's definitely not for everyone. Thing is, it's only completely mindless if you play this game on normal difficulty to the easiest. I mean, look at this shit. I'm playing on easy right now. The enemy are petrified to attack. They aren't even attempting to hit me. Now look at it on hard. Massive difference. If you play the game on harder difficulties, it definitely takes a bit of strategy and skill to get through the levels without dying. Like, you could easily play this game on the easiest difficulty without ever really blocking or countering, no problem. But once you start playing on the harder difficulties, you can get your ass handed to you very quickly if you aren't paying attention. The combo system is, again, basic. You press the square button for your normal attacks, and then you have the option to follow that up with a strong attack. You can't combine the strong attacks with normal ones. It's a major turnoff for most people, and a big reason why a lot of people dislike the gameplay of Dynasty Warriors, especially critics. There are plenty of other hack and slash titles, or just action games in general, like God of War, Heavenly Sword, Dante's Inferno, 99 Nights, those Lord of the Ring games, the Kingdom Under Fire games, and the list goes on. They all do the combo system significantly better, and anyone that tries to deny that is either deluded or fucking crazy. Look, I'm not saying that the combo system is awful. I've played games with worse, Dynasty Warriors 6, but it's not spectacular. It's not innovative. It's not really anything outside of being stale or boring. Another thing I really don't care for is the skill tree that each character possesses. Now, I use the term skill tree extremely loose because, well, I mean, look at this shit. Look at how basic it is. And that's my issue with it. It's all so basic and so shallow that it makes me wonder, why did they include this in the first place? Now, if the skill tree was like 3 times the size for every character and more complex overall, it would feel like it had some sort of a purpose. I would have loved the skill tree idea if it was done better. Honestly, the way Koei did it here just came off as lazy in my eyes. Let's talk a little bit about Conquest mode. The way the mode works is very simple. You start out at the very top right of the map, and the entire map is done so on a grid format. You go from grid to grid, beating levels and conquering other capitals. Beating certain levels will grant you numerous things, such as bonus money and reputation, a companion animal that will help you during your battles, a bonus weapon, and you can also unlock other characters by completing their legendary battles, which feature said character. In Conquest mode, you can go to the capitals that you've unlocked, where you then can upgrade or buy weaponry, you can take a quiz that will give you extra money, you can hire support generals during your battles, and chat with other officers. I actually really enjoy the Conquest mode, but the problem is I can only play it for so long, like maybe an hour tops, because it gets old very quick. And that is due to the levels themselves. A good portion of them tend to be on the smaller size, and I'm okay with that, but there's nothing really to the levels. Nothing really that engaging compared to the levels in the story mode. For the most part, you are given an objective, and it could be anything from defeat the main commander, help your commanding officer reach the escape point, defend an objective, and so on. The only missions I tend to enjoy are the legendary ones because they usually have a little bit more going on. Again, Conquest isn't bad. I did have fun with it at times. It's just that if the gameplay was more engaging and the combo system wasn't so dated, it would have been a lot more enjoyable. I would have liked to have talked a little bit more about this mode, but honestly there's really nothing to say about it without dragging this review on longer than it needs to be. And so with that, we have reached the end of this review. And I always ask the question, do I recommend this game? It's hard to say because I feel like the only people that are going to like this game are already fans of the Dynasty Warrior franchise. I don't see many people who are new to hack and slash titles really enjoying this, nor do I see fans of the genre liking it as well because of how insanely basic it truly is. For the PS2 era, this would have been totally fine, but with all the fantastic hack and slash titles on the PS3 and 360, there's almost no reason to even bother. Just about every other hack and slash game is more enjoyable to play and also significantly less repetitive. Dynasty Warriors has always been bitched at by critics for being a series where if you played one of the titles, you've played them all. Do I agree with that? If I'm going to be totally non-biased and forgoing all of my years of being a fanboy in the past, then yeah, I would have to agree with the critics on that. Obviously, the games differ from each other in certain aspects, but in all honesty, all the games play nearly identical from one another. So to answer my question before of do I recommend Dynasty Warriors 7? Unless you are already a fan of the series, then no, there's way better options out there. And there you have it, everyone. Thank you all very much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the review, and I'll see you next time.
What a miserable world this is, where we are forced to watch while idiots erupt in hysterics. Meanwhile, my own talents are destined to be wasted.